Welcome to the People's Guild.
Each week we explore the Splinterland universe with guests from all across the mythical land of Praetoria.
Join us on our journey as we discuss the evolution of the game, the strategy, the lore, and the exciting path that lies ahead.
To support the People's Guild, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and also check us out on PeakD, YouTube, and Twitter.
Send your questions, suggestions, and epic battles in our comments through Twitter or email at thepeoplesguildsbl@gmail.com. We'll feature the best in our episodes and maybe airdrop you some prizes.
Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the People's Guild. Another week, another episode, another wonderful guest. Quick acknowledgement to Aqualis Marketplace, continuing to do cool stuff, continuing to do some big payouts. If you guys are leveraging the marketplace system over there, so go check it out if you have not. We've got Infidel1258. I think I went back and listened to our previous episode over the last couple of days, getting ready to bring you on, and man, it's amazing how much has changed and how much hasn't changed in the past year. Just kind of here, we pinpointed a couple of SPS token prices, and we were talking about soulbound cards, and yeah, it's just a really interesting kind of like time capsule from a year ago. It's pretty much a year ago today, I guess, since we last had you on. So anyways, welcome back to the show, Dwayne. Great to see you, man. Wonderful to have you.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. I'm excited to have a nice conversation about a game that we both enjoy.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Before we get on to Splinterlands, I wanted to bring up, I saw that you had, posted in one of our comments on YouTube, I think it was from the Wasco video maybe, that you're a big Axis and Allies fan, because I had mentioned it, that I like playing. And yeah, so I wanted to know, what's your, your favorite country to play, and which version did you like to play? Are we talking like the original? Are we talking like the 1942 edition? There's been a couple different iterations of it.
Yeah, we first and foremost met it with my good buddy from high school. Actually met him in elementary school, so we're going back to 92, 93, and he just had a different, for that time when I'm 43 now, so we were about 12, 13. And I would say that's unusual for two young guys like us to just be getting into a 7-hour board game or whatever Risk or Axis and Allies can be, but we did all the time. And we played the original a lot, I mean a lot. And I don't know, man, he was just better than me. He would be the Axis, and then he'd kick my ass, and then he'd be the Allies, and he'd still slap me around. But I just loved trying. And man, I remember I won the first time we played it, and we're still, maybe not the first, but one of the first times when we're still figuring it out. I remember on turn one time we were playing, me and two buddies, and we didn't know airplanes can't land in an enemy territory unless you've first conquered it. And so somebody took England, UK, on turn one. I think it must have been Germany, but he landed a Russian, or he landed a plane there to conquer it and finish me off. And that was a tip the board moment. If anybody played, those old Risk, or, your friend freaks out. It was no way, first turn, but we broke every rule for it. But yeah, the original first and foremost.
Yeah, that's such a great game. Yeah, I played that a lot. It's not weird at that age to be playing a bunch of board games. I definitely did that with my friends, and that's sort of when I started to get into video games more too. I think around that age, and we were video games and computer games were becoming bigger at the time then as well. Because I'm 40, so yeah, right around that time frame when some of those cooler games like Wing Commander and that TIE Fighter first X-Wing game came out. Lots of those games we had to that's probably at that point. Do we have CD-ROMs at that point? We were maybe just getting CD-ROMs. I remember having to be playing a game, and then be a point where it'd stop and it'd be all right, now load floppy disk number 8 into the when you'd get a game, it's just a big stack of floppy disks, and you'd have to load them at different times to play it. But which is something that for anybody younger, probably even for Jangles is he's just a couple years younger than me. He's probably like, what the hell is this guy's talking about? But
I was just looking it up, and I don't think I've ever played Axis and Allies. I definitely played Risk a couple of times. I had some buddies that we did do some board game dabbling with, but yeah, it wasn't until probably the last 10 years ish, 15 years that I really started playing board games. Since I moved back to Taiwan, it's been kind of further and fewer between. But yeah, I wonder how games like that would translate to a video game platform. So I just Googled Axis and Allies while we were talking, and it looks like it's available on the Steam platform.
Steam has a version of 1942. So, and I think I don't know if you saw this comment, Dwayne, that I responded, but there is a version. Let me pull it up right now, and I'll put the link in the chat. There is a version. There's this thing called Games by Email.
Okay.
.com, I think it is. Hold on, I'll find it. And so they have basically different games that they have kind of done that, and they've computerized them, and then you can play with different people, and it just emails you when it's your turn.
That sounds
take
fun.
your turn, and it'll there it is. So it'll take you can do your turn, and then it'll email the next person, be like his turn. So World War II is it's a clone of Axis and Allies.
Amazing. And this is free, I assume.
It's free. Yeah, it's totally free. And then I like to play Empires too, which is a clone of History of the World, which is another game I played when I was younger, which is great. But yeah, if you click on the WW2 one, Jangles, you'll see.
Dude, that's rad.
See a preview. Go to just see a preview. Yeah, so you can play with however many people.
I think you might have just stolen hours of my life away from my wife.
So it's great because it calculates everything. It does all the dice rolls automatically. So look at this. How awesome is this? That
is so amazing. And remember how Jangles, you won't know, maybe some of the audience will know, but this game took forever to set up. Yeah. Like, I mean, you had these like little discs that you would stack on one another, and then you put a little infantry on top to represent how many infantry, and you had to do on every single little province or whatever you see on the screen there.
Yeah, it's one of those games that the layout, the number of pieces you have and where they're placed is very specifically laid out for each country. And so you have Russia, the US, Germany, UK, and Japan. And so, yeah, it is a game that it took probably a half hour just to set up, right? Like to do it, the right way.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I got to ask, did you ever play Military Madness for TurboGrafx 16?
No.
Okay, well, it was, there's a shot in the dark there, but TurboGrafx 16 was an interesting console that me and the guys got into when we were little, and it had this like one of the best real-time strategy, top down, almost like a Axis and Allies vibe, but like digital and automated. You're playing, it's a lot like I'm not gonna remember the other titles, but if you saw it, Military Madness, you would think of like modern day RTS games, and good stuff. Good classic. Love it.
Yeah. I love a great hex board game layout strategy game. It's super fun. So yeah, we can get a Axis and Allies game going. We can teach you how to play Jangles. It'll be a lot of fun.
I was just gonna say, man, if you guys kick off one of these board games by email, count me in, man. That sounds fun.
I will absolutely do it because it is a minimal time commitment, and you can play, take a turn or two a day. So we'll get it going. I wonder, because we were talking about board games with Call Me Tim too. So I wonder if we could rope him into it. He might be interested.
Love it.
Well, Dwayne, before we hit record, we were just complimenting your the degree at which you've been churning out content. If it starts taking a significant hit of any kind, we'll know the culprit. Thanks, Hep.
Hey, we could stream it. We could stream our turns live. It'd be great.
That's great. My channel might just have to revamp into Axis and Allies
strategy channel. Just take a turn, and we'll do like a quick screen grab of us, and then. I don't know. We just got to find someone to stitch it all together, and us like talking through our strategy and the move, and that'd be that'd be really fun.
I'm sure people would actually love that, to be honest. But you know what? Honestly, like there is a bit of that where even now I'm enjoying other things. Right now, I'm playing a lot of Apex Legends. It's a game I've loved over the years. I love shooter games, but I'm not good at these things, but I do enjoy them. It's just, I feel like it's a little bit of a distraction, turn off the brain and just like, do this thing that is almost a rote. And when you win, it's exciting. But it's getting to the place where, I don't really, I've got 2 young ones. I got a wife that I'm trying to love well, and full-time job outside of this. So I have to be pretty like, what's that word? Like sometimes I gotta slash things off, and at times where I'll just like delete that Apex game and just I won't touch it for months because it's a sink for me. But every now and then it's just fun to go down these rabbit holes.
Yeah, I'm with you. The same way. I mean, yeah, it's definitely, I had those phases too. We're like, all right, yeah, I just need to like focus on other stuff. But sometimes I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm kind of burned out, man. I just want to focus on playing some games. And
Right.
it was certainly one of those time periods in my life that got me into Splinterlands. So
Mhm.
definitely very happy that I have that part of my personality.
Well, you guys mentioning that is really interesting with respect to something like Arcade Colony. I feel like it lends itself really well to that style of gaming where you can, really grind and commit a good amount of time and then push pause. And given the Web3 aspect of that, maybe when you're pushing pause, you can rent out your stake of Colony or whatever that is, and whenever you're ready to get fired back up into, I
Mhm.
would imagine we were talking a little bit about it yesterday in the Battle Royale. What is the rest of the year going to look like for something like Arcade Colony? If they can, bring. I mean, I feel like that whole list that we just saw, board games by email, a lot of that stuff would translate really well in
Yeah.
maybe an abbreviated version to something like Arcade Colony. And if
Yeah.
Aggie can, put rubber to the road and roll out, a suite of 10 games before the end of the year, that might be a really worthwhile investment of time for, that style of gameplay that you just referenced.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know much about game development or whatnot, and from what I've heard, games that are built on Unity can be translated quite easily. And again, easily might be not the right word to use there, but it seems as though it's possible. And I was playing recently a game called Boomerang Foo, which is a game me and my daughter like to play together, and it's like this cute little, it's like Bomberman. If you guys played Bomberman, and when you were younger, but instead of throwing bombs, you're throwing boomerangs, and super simple, super cute, and absolutely transferable into like a Web3 space. Just essentially dropping loot or earning loot for NFTs, collectibles, because you earn skins when you play. Well, they could be NFT skins. You earn points when you win. Maybe it's a tokenomics, like some sort of crypto. And that's one example. That's actually a really successful Steam game. 97% people, Google users, love it. But there's just is there 1,000, 10,000 games that once they understand it's easy to do, will do it? I actually think there's big numbers that will want to. I'm not saying right away. I'm not saying, I don't really think that space is like even thinking about this right now, but some will. And I think that ball starts down that hill and it just gains speed. And I think you see more and more and more as the years go by, to the point where it will become, in my mind, absolutely ubiquitous. There'll be some element of this wrapped into every game you ever play at some point in the future, because why not? It's literally another incentive to draw you in, and they want your attention. They want you to play it. In the same way that you go to every store and they want to give you a card because they want to track your points, it's the same thing. Every game will do it. They'll want to do it because it'll be in their best interest to incentivize you to stick around longer, play more, attend to it greater, draw new attention, point to it and say, hey, look what I'm earning. All that is like free for them advertising. And all they have to do is create a token on a blockchain, and they don't even have to do that if they come to somebody like Invennium or Arcade Colony and just like, say, hey guys, figure it out for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear you analogize it to the kind of like loyalty programs you see and rewards programs you see even with like credit cards or at a store, earning points, things like that. Yeah, I've never quite thought of it in that way, but it is basically the same thing, right? And if especially with games like there's tons of Unity games online. There's tons of aggregator sites where people can post their own Unity games, and they're just up there. And as soon as they can start to get enough play, like they'll start dropping like Google ads in it and stuff, right? So that's how people can make money, make revenue. But as someone who's playing it, you're just playing it because I want to play a stupid game for a little bit and kill some time.
Yep.
And I'm not getting really anything out of it besides that distraction, right? But yeah, if there's that setup where you could play that in that manner and also get a little bit of rewards back, be rewarded, like you said, for the time and attention, then, why not do that instead of doing, just the Web 2 version?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't see any reason. Like, I think the reason it hasn't snowballed or really gained steam at this moment, and this is my I guess working theory, is just that there is a black eye around crypto. I mean, you look at things like, what was that main one that just recently, like every few years there's like some sort of nasty thing that happens, going all the way back to Mount Gox. And I think the average person thinks of crypto as a scam. And until that is overcome, and that is being overcome every day, but until that is like more fully overcome to the point where, and maybe it's a case where like some of the developers need to, more grow up in it. And with crypto being around 10 years, maybe it's like within the next 5 years, there's some of the voices that are starting to have control over these things are the people who grew up in this like post Bitcoin world, where blockchain isn't, a nasty word. It's like, it's an exciting technology that can be implemented within the context of, trustless systems and within a game system, tokenomic systems that have allowed exchange of value in a trustless way, over the internet. I think it just straps so easily onto a game, and it absolutely is another reason why you'd want to play. Like we see with Splinterlands, you hear a lot of people say, I like the rewards, or they talk about how much they can get. And then you hear other people talk about the gameplay and how much they enjoy playing it. And then I often talk about, in Splinterlands in particular, how the game within the game is like playing the economy. Like you go into the Peak Monsters Marketplace or Aqualis, and you're looking for those deals, or even the idea that Aqualis gives you tokens back on your purchases. If you almost gamify your approach to card acquisition with these tools that you have available to you, are playing a certain game in the actual building of your own deck. It's not exactly the auto brawler that is Splinterlands. It's like something else, addition to, tangential from, the traditional idea of what Splinterlands is. And I think that's the cool thing that gets tacked on to any game when you introduce sort of a tokenomic element that comes through blockchain.
Yeah, 100%. And this whole conversation makes me think about what is Hive doing in less fortunate parts of the world. And shout out to Matt Clark and the guys over at 101. Matt Clark has been beating the drum on what's happening in Venezuela, for example, with Hive for as long as I've been around. And it sounds like he hasn't lost any sense of hope that Hive is going to take off there. It sounds like more and more retailers are starting to embrace Hive and allow Hive to, transact for folks. So that's, it's going to be cyclical. And as soon as you start seeing those, Hive, we accept Hive payment stickers in the windows, it's just going to raise more questions from folks that aren't yet participating. And it, I think the magic that is available through something like Hive and HBD, not only is it the stability that has been there for as long as HBD has been around, I don't think it's wavered too far from peg ever. In a place like Venezuela, where the bolivar is subject to absurd amounts of inflation, and I one of my best friends, his wife is from Venezuela, and she was talking about a dozen eggs costing some absurd like $30, which equates to like 50% of a monthly average take home, something like that. Wow. So enter something like HBD and Hive and Arcade Colony, where all of a sudden all of these things are at play and intermingling with one another. If you can play these games on Hive Keychain on your mobile, which can help support your family, which is going to benefit the retailers, and it's just this amazing economy that's I think on the cusp of kind of blowing up. And I feel like it's prime time for something like Arcade Colony to come in and really kind of drive the nail home on bringing these folks on board.
Yeah, I'm excited for the tokenization of like social media as well, and that's like what Hive is in my mind. And so I think absolutely, I think really there is like a great impact or reach that can happen as more and more that wall comes down of Bitcoin bad, blockchain dangerous, scam. as that comes down, because it's going to be familiarity, it's going to be, you know, the frequency of just touch points with it, things like the ETF, etc. And I do think you're going to see more and more of it, not just in games, but I do think it's absolutely, is the word ripe. It's ripe for revolution within video game context. But I do think social media Hive is exciting too. I haven't really looked at too much like what it's doing in sort of the third world or whatever, but that's exciting, especially for all the reasons you just outlined. I for one I actually came into this space because of Steemit and blogging for money on the Steam blockchain, which later became Hive. And so I'm super on board with it. So far, it just hasn't really gained the traction you would want. But again, is that a failure of the sort of tool, or is that a bit of the hurdle of just the black eye of crypto? I think it's the latter.
Kind of, what do you think about 10, 15 years from now? We're talking about, Arcade Colony, how these games are sort of more accessible to everyday people than something like Splinterlands. Do you see Arcade Colony kind of outgrowing Splinterlands? Because I know you're someone who, you said you're a big gamer and you play a lot of games and you look at a lot of different games, Web 2, Web 3 games. Like, what do you think? Like, where do you think those two kind of balance out very long term?
That's a fun question to think about. Yeah, I mean, I do think I've heard a couple of people say this, so it's not really my idea, but I definitely echo it. The idea that, if Arcade Colony if it becomes what it's supposed to become, I think that is an insane home run. The likes of which, like Splinterlands, cannot match. Now, it's not that somebody might hear that and be like, oh, Dwayne doesn't believe in Splinterlands. No. Like, hear me. Like, I think Splinterlands has a possibility for really significant growth, still radical growth. We got maybe 5,000, 10,000 real players. I think we could get 1 million. I really think that. I love this game. I think there's growth in what this game is. So I'm actually like, the sort of bullishness that I have for what Arcade Colony could be is massive, but that is so far, so like totally unproven right now that is like, with Splinterlands, you've got 5 years of survival planning, the team showing its face and answering questions on a weekly basis, a community of people that support it and encourage it, talk about it broadly on, social media. All of those pieces are not here yet for Arcade Colony. And so as excited as I might be across the next 5, 10, 20 years for something like Arcade Colony, which is massive excitement, there's a huge grain of salt, because it's completely unproven. Like, Mooncarts isn't even out, and we saw like a basic demo that looked a little buggy. Like, it looked fun. I'm excited for it. Don't get me wrong. But when you see that first play on the live where they did the GLG or GLX town hall when they were demoing it, it looked a little buggy, and it's not out yet. And, it didn't look like the best racing game, to be fair. It looked good. I'm going to want to play it. I know I'm going to play it if it's that good. But, if you compare it to like even Mario Kart, you know what I mean? So like, I'm a huge bullishness, like super excited for where Arcade Colony could land. If it ends up landing anywhere near where it's supposed to, where they're intending, I think that's just going to change people's lives financially. That's my belief. That's not investment advice, but that's my belief.
Yeah, it's interesting. It definitely has a lot of potential. I agree. It's We'll see. I'm just not I don't know I know there are some other sort of Web3 platforms that have sort of a number of different games under the same umbrella, but I'm just not familiar with anyone who's doing something exactly like what Arcade Colony is kind of envisioning doing, which I think is a really sort of a good niche to have. So yeah, that's what I think is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm getting a little out of my comfort zone in terms of like what knowledge I have about this, but from what I do understand, just on that idea of like Invennium being different or separate, or Arcade Colony having kind of a niche, I do think that's true. I think offering the platform as a service and just being able to onboard any old game, essentially, not any old game, but lots of different games I think, to my knowledge, nobody else is doing that. And when you look at other games, there are developers that are almost making their own ecosystem of games, which is cool and exciting for those people. But that's totally different than being able to gateway any new oncomers, because there's what always happens. Maybe this is, I think what always happens with this stuff, and look at every bull market cycle. The last time Bitcoin reached 65,000, people are talking about how it's going to 100, 200, a million. There was a bet, somebody bet like Bitcoin's going to a million. It's like some, I can't remember who it was, but he said he was going to win a million within 60 days of that. And of course it didn't. And you know, there's never more bullishness than at the peaks of markets, and there's never more bearishness than at the bottoms. What that translates to in terms of development is that development lags. Like you see token prices ascend, and then there's sort of companies who are flush with money. They go seeking developers, and this is what happened to Splinterlands. And the team gets built up, and then the bear market starts to set in, and we're like, oh, we don't actually have like the same ongoing income that we previously had. Plus, our tokens are cratering, and so a lot of the perceived paper value of our investments has gone away. And so what that means to me is that there's always going to be latecomers, because the developers don't come, and well, the developers aren't paid until the bull market's in full effect. And so then there's no real development happening in this moment, except for games like Splinterlands, who have just been going and going and going. So that means that there'll come a time in the next bull market, whenever that is, if that's the next halving, or if it's, you know, in the next few weeks, like it's already happening. I mean, but you know what I mean? For SPS to go into crazy places. What I'm saying is I think there'll be a huge appetite for easy onboarding. And they're gonna come to this space wanting to get in, and the only, seems to me, one of the only paths, maybe the only path, will be through what Arcade Colony is, but it's got to prove itself, at least with moon carts. So that one is the most exciting release for me within the next 6 months or whatever it's supposed to be. I can't wait to see how it launches, if it's enjoyable, if it's super buggy, if the tokenomics like, you know, work, it's not like hacked immediately or something like that. All of that matters in terms of just communicating success and inviting new participants.
Yeah, it's a brilliant take, man. I feel like what Invennium is doing, if I understand the platform as a service model correctly, it sounds like, you know, the bottleneck that you just referred to, where, you know, we're not going to develop until the money's there. The money's not there until the bull market is in full effect. Well, that's completely chopped out of the equation with something like Invennium. The development can be happening on the sidelines by, you know, a million different third parties, and all of a sudden they approach Invennium with a fully fledged product minus the tokenomics, enter in you know, tokens like Colony, like Script, into some earning capacity within the game, and, you know, bingo bango, you got yourself a Web3 game. So I mean, it, like you said, man, it feels like it's ripe for an explosion, and it's super exciting what's happening over at Arcade Colony. That said, you know, I know you just published maybe a couple of videos referencing Arcade Colony moon cards. What's happening over there? How are you going about preparing for moon cards? Are you doubling down on your GLX stake yet?
I bought another 1,000, so I should tell you how many I got. I don't think I'm a relative I told somebody how many I had, and they were blown away by how many I had. So maybe I am pretty big, but I think I've got like a lot less than, where is it? I'm trying to open it up and tell you how many I have, because I actually don't remember. Like I've said this before, I think it's worth saying again. I thought GLX looked terrible. And so I didn't sell my tokens, but that was strictly because there was just, by the time I could have, there was no real value in there. And I say that because, not to crap on them, but just to say that, like, I'm not bullish on everything. It has to actually be exciting to me. And where's my tokens? I'm looking. So I got 1,000. Looks like I got 39,000 GLX, and I would love more, but the truth is I cannot focus on that. As excited as I am for what moon cards could be, I feel, for me at this moment in time, with my investment portfolio within Splinterlands, and with Splinterlands having ridden through 2 bear markets, I really want to leave most of them. And I'd love to hear Hep's thoughts on this, because you're a little bit newer, and I think I recently gleaned some of what you'd say to this. But I'm like, I don't want to play too many of these things over here, as much as I am excited for that. I do think, but I kind of like, I don't know if you guys are baseball fans, but like I don't need a home run. I just need like a base hit. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
So I don't want to swing for the fences and then get strike out. That's a little where I'm at with GLX. Still 39,000. I don't know if you think that's a lot, but I'm not. That's all I got right now.
Yeah, you definitely make it to the Hall of Fame hitting singles. It's though baseball has changed now since those sort of old idioms have been in play, or now everybody just wants to hit at least a double.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so it's kind of different. But yeah, no, I agree, and yeah, that is kind of how I feel. I definitely got into crypto and kind of had some money that I wanted to invest in it, and put a bunch into different places, and put a good chunk into Splinterlands. And since then, I've kind of turned, both my Splinterlands playing and my kind of crypto investments into how I handle my regular investments, which is just that I have dollar cost average in. I have a set amount I want to put certain places every month, right? And sometimes, after a few months, if I haven't spent a bunch of other money other places, maybe I'll have a little bit more and I'll throw it around somewhere. But yeah, so I'm very much like where I just have a set amount that I want to put in, that's and I'm fine with that. And it's tough with when things like Rebellion come out, because then you kind of do have to plan it out, and maybe I save up so that I have funds where I can get a couple hundred packs. But yeah, I'm not diving in and getting a full set of something as soon as it comes out, right? I buy, and I was thinking about this the other day, and really what I do is I'm looking to buy the cards that I won't say I need to have, but the cards I want to play, the cards I'm looking to play any chance I can, right? And we kind of all know those types of cards. Those are those very powerful cards. Every card, and I get this as a team, and the way they build out the rule sets, the abilities, and the way they've done the balancing of everything. And I think it's phenomenal. And they've done a phenomenal, and they continue to make this even better and better, where every card has its place, right? But there's those cards that they're great to have when you absolutely need them.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I've kind of prioritized like those cards. Maybe I'll get to some of those cards, or, that's why I always want to buy a certain amount of packs, because then I can always kind of get pretty much all the cards at a silver level or almost a silver level, so that I have it in some form that I can play it in gold when I need to, or when I want to. But yeah, but there's a lot of cards that like I don't feel like I look for them or I really want to play them. But when they're there, I know that like sometimes I look at it and be like, oh, I wish I had that card level up right now, because this card would be perfect for this rule set. But that might be, I might see that card and think that once a week, right?
Yeah.
And playing, 20, 30 games every day. So, but then there are other cards that I'm playing, multiple times, almost every match. So yeah, so that's kind of how I look at it, is like I can kind of get those cards I want, and as I figure out how the game's evolving, I can get the other cards too. But and yeah, I felt this way, and I started to really feel this way probably maybe it was a little over a year ago, when we had like Rooney was coming out, Soul Keep was coming out, GLX was just first coming out, that the Genesis League Goals was just first coming. It was all coming out at once. And that's sort of where I reached my point where I was like, this is too much. I just need to dial it back. And, I've been happy doing that. And, I think these other things look fun. And I like tower defense games, and I would love to be able to kind of, go into Soul Keep more. But I also really like Splinterlands, and I'm sort of, I'm invested there. And I'll look at some of those other things and invest in it a little bit, but it's not something that, I'm not going to go chasing the different new thing around
Yeah.
time something new and shiny comes out in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's too many things. Hey, there's too many things, and there's too many good cards. I liked what you said there. There's too many, like not just cards, but like too many games and too many. There's only so much time. We talked about family. We talked about life outside of this. Yeah, can't do it all.
Yeah. I'm wondering, because I know you do videos sometimes. I don't typically watch the videos that are on other Web3 games, but I know I have seen them number and come up in your feed. And so I kind of wanted to know sort of, like you said, you don't have a lot of time, and I don't know, is this something where you're looking at these games and just sort of like figuring them out and coming up with some content to inform people about them? Or are these other games that you are kind of regularly playing, or are you always like kind of looking for a new game that might be interesting to play as well as Splinterlands?
Yeah, I would, people do wonder. So thanks for giving me the chance to answer this. I am only doing what I'm interested in doing. I'm definitely not doing anything specifically for, advertising or for, to share with the community or even to like, from a content angle. It's like, I just am enjoying some things. I actually am playing, what's it called? Uh, I don't want to forget the name of it right now. What's it? The Immortal Creed. I'm playing Immortal Creed almost every day, and it takes me about an hour to play my matches. But then I do it while I'm doing something else. Like I'm listening to a YouTube video or I'm taking a time out from anything anyways, and I'll just throw to my matches. That's quite a bit of long time, man. Like it's not nothing to say an hour a day for a game, and the rewards are really, they're significant and also somehow trivial. So this is just one example, but this, everything I'm saying about Immortal Creed is like how I think about all these other ones, Splinter Forge, and actually those are really the only two others that I'm, well, no, and Golem Overlord. So those are the three that I'm attending to at some level, in addition to Splinterlands. And I do think I'll incorporate tower defense. I do think I'll incorporate moon carts. That's five now. And I do think I'm always going to be looking at the next thing, but I'm never going very hard into any of these things. I'm just kind of like picking at them and trying to have a little fun with them, to maybe stay informed about them, also because I enjoy them, and finally because I do think I think that like we are on the cusp of a video game revolution that will translate to financial returns outside of Splinterlands. Now, I'm okay missing those boats. I'm not trying to chase every win, because frankly, I don't have the time, but also I don't have the money. And finally, lots of them will not become wins. But yeah, I'm enjoying the journey, trying to tinker with them, and playing all those ones a little bit. And I've thrown like $1 or $2 or $300 at all of those. Maybe maybe $100 to $200 is actually accurate. Um, and I said one comment I'll circle back to: the rewards on some of these things is trivial but significant, and it's a strange combination of words to choose maybe, but trivial in the sense, like with Immortal Creed, you can earn like a free pack a day, which is $2, and you say $2 a day, like that's kind of wild. Well, truth be told, it's not actually $2 a day, it's like one pack a day. It's a $2 pack, but you wouldn't be able to sell that pack every day. There's not enough player base chasing after those rewards. And so that's exciting though. I actually like the game. I'm enjoying acquiring a deck within it. And I like that the developer seems quite active in trying to build community. He's reached out to myself as well as Bronze Dragon, and he'll be in live chats just talking to people. That to me is like all good stuff. And so that's a bit of a long answer, but yeah, I'm looking at other things, but I'm not going very deep in any of them. Because again, I'm not looking for a lot of home runs anymore. I feel like Splinterlands is like a real home run for me. And I don't think Splinterlands is even close to done. So I'm focusing there, but I am taking bites or nibbles over here and there on different things.
What is a Mortal Creed? Is that just creating her game? Is it an auto battler? Is it more like a Hearthstone type thing, or what's kind of the gameplay like?
Very briefly, you pick a hero, he's an immortal, and so first of all, it's an NFT card collectible. So you buy packs, you get cards in them. The cards will either be an immortal, which is like a hero, or they'll be items, which think swords, bows, or magic weapons. And there's armor too. So different items and heroes. You pick your hero, and each hero has different abilities. Maybe one hero nerfs damage from your opponent, or maybe one hero increases your damage toward the opponent. And then there's different rule sets. There's like one rule set, so it's going to tweak the interaction every single time. And then you pick your hero. You pick the 2 or 5 items, depends on the sort of what level you're at. You pick more or less items. And then your my immortal goes shot for shot with you, and it's turn based, so it is automatic in a sense. Like you pick your hero, you pick the items he's going to wear, and it's going to roll through your items 1 2 3, bow number 1, bow number 2, sword number 1, sword number 2, and you can do any combination of swords, wands, bows, armor. And so you're either defending yourself, healing yourself, poisoning the opponent, archery, magic, or meleeing the opponent. And this combination auto unfolds in front of you, my immortal versus your immortal, and somebody's going to win a little bit of valor, which is their essentially DEC equivalent. And yeah, if you play in silver, which is where I play, you're earning maybe like a pack a day. $2, quote unquote, but it's like, it really is better to call it one pack a day.
Same.
Yeah, I did watch your, I think it was Hawks that initially introduced me to Immortal Creed. I think he and the developer had coordinated for some sort of marketing campaign when they were getting ready to launch their alpha pack sale. And I don't know if I ever saw some live gameplay, but I have watched a couple of your videos or listened. And what I found most interesting is some of the, I don't know if you can call it tokenomics, but the reforge mechanic that is present in Immortal Creed. And to my understanding, and maybe you can clarify for us, you've got all of this items and equipment list that you can essentially toss into the forge and reforge a new item and equipment, and have chances for, I think the returns are diminishing, right? Like you're not getting one for one.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, the reason I bring that up is, I think about when Golem Overlord first got going, and we saw Yaba kind of shoot to the top of the leaderboard, and he went really hard and heavy, and I think his pursuit of leaderboard stuff was not so much, maybe it was for the fun of the game, but I have to suspect a bulk of that pursuit was more in search of the tokenomics, and like, how is this game functioning on the back end? Like, what are they doing that Splinterlands can learn from? So I'm wondering if I feel like the reforge opportunity is something that would be really cool with perhaps items and spells. Maybe that's a permanent burn mechanic that we get introduced into Splinterlands. I'm wondering if of all these games that you've played, Dwayne, is there one piece that if we had Yaba's ear for the moment, is there one piece of any of these games that you feel like would benefit Praetoria more than others?
Great question. I do think so. I just actually did a video, I want to say 2 days ago, maybe, called Reinventing Card Burning in Splinterlands. And it's doing well, about 500 views. And on that, and there's 19 comments. I'm sure some of them are not approving of the idea within the video, but the idea within the video is actually a little bit of what you're asking about, which is like, are there other ideas from other games that, we could bring to Splinterlands? And particularly around this idea of burning and card burning and reforging and whatnot is brought up in that one. I would say that there's a unique moment in Splinterlands right now that we can have a voice around and a conversation around what is it going to look like to handle things like, for instance, soulbound reward cards, and we're talking about different mechanisms that they'll be either made transferable, rentable, tradable, sellable, burnable. And there's so many different ideas. And we can look to some of these other games and see what they've done. And I've heard the community a lot talk about the idea of, let us burn them, create like essentially a dust token. I heard this from Gathering the Magic. I heard it from Silence. I forget who else. But I think something in there is like really what I think about when I look at, for instance, Immortal Creed, and when I look at what they're doing with respect to the Reforge, or Splinter Forge did it before them even. Splinter Forge, you get too many copies of a card. For anybody who doesn't know these games, you got the same common monster in Splinterlands. You got your like, what's a example? You got too many Heatsmith. You want to get rid of a few copies. Well, you could sell them, I guess, but they're not worth anything. Or you can burn them, and maybe they create dust that can translate into the creation of other common cards. And so I actually, in that video, I looked on Discord and I saw somebody suggesting in the Splinterlands map chat, maybe a week or two ago, and I just had a screenshot of it that I wanted to kind of break down. And he was suggesting, what if you could burn 5 commons and create 1 random new common? That happens in other games like Diablo. It happens in games, what else? I mean, that's an amazing example. That's a mainstay game where you can You can put your items into your cube and like change their formation, change their stats, change their sockets, etc. And so people are going to know Diablo. Like if that could happen within the context of Splinterlands, you're talking about deletion of card supply. Like cards like Heatsmith, there was a lot of them printed. That was a reward card, and right, I think. And there's lots of copies. What if we could delete 5 of them and create one new random common? And it would, I assume, be within the context of the same iteration window. Like if it's a soulbound reward card, it should be one of those soulbound reward commons. And you could even conceive like within, so this is the idea. Like I would say, let us burn multiple copies of any one card and create a new card. Give us a chance at creating a new card within the same tier or better, and make it possibly gold foil. And the mathematical drop rates would have to be thought through by the team, but maybe it's something like 5 commons can give you 1 new common. And maybe there's like a small chance that 1 new common can go gold foil. And maybe it needs to be 10. I'm not saying 5 is the right number, but something like that exists in Splinterforge. It exists in Immortal Creed. It exists in Diablo. And so I think that mechanism is something that Splinterlands could benefit from. And I hope one day we see something like that, probably starting with the soulbound reward cards.
Well, what's the difference of just burning it for the card for DC and using that DC to then just go buy another card, though, right? I mean, so what incentivizes me to have this other mechanic or use this other mechanic as opposed to just doing that?
Yeah, good question. I would say that you're right. You would have 2 options, but the DC burn rates are usually really minimal. As we look at some of the common cards, we're talking 1 BCX is 5 power, which means 5 DC for 1 common. What is 5 DC? Is that even
half a penny?
Yeah, I think it's like a half of a tenth of a penny, if I'm right. No, anyways, like it's nothing. And so I used to go to a comic book store when I was a kid, and I collected Marvel collector hero cards. And so it was like Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk and all these guys from the Marvel universe. And the comic book store owner had a box of these old cards that other people had traded in. He'd bought and sold them from people, and they were kind of dog-eared. So they just were, if you wanted to complete your collection with not a top tier quality copy, this was where you went. Guy has a bin of them on the table. And what he would do is he would accept 2 of any card you got to give, because you're going to have duplicates in your collection. So you trade in 2 of any card for any 1 card in his collection. And so I just found that fun. I found that as a kid fun to root through what could be, and like, what would I trade away for, oh, you got that like Venom card that I don't have a copy of. I'd love that. And so the randomization side of it, as opposed to the like zeros and ones, I can burn this for 5 DC. If I burn 100 copies, that's 500 DC. That could allow me to buy 1 copy of whatever. That feels I don't know, just like of more accounting. It's like almost like a little lottery ticket. Maybe that's what it is. It's like there's a little what if every time you burn many to create 1 new one. And then I would say one more point there, Hep, is that the side, if you agree that sort of question mark would be exciting to the player base, I think it would be, then I would say that we're probably talking now about significant card burning, which should itself be exciting to the community, because even if you don't want to participate in this process, you would be benefiting as other people did. So I guess the real question is, do you guys think, and I'd love to hear your actual response, do you think that people would like and pursue and use this sort of option? Because there's like a what if it turns into a gold foil? What if it's that cool common that I don't otherwise own? And yeah, the DCs just isn't significant. Do you think that is attractive?
I like that idea. I think, saying that there's a chance to be a gold foil. I think it's attractive. I think, the thing I struggle with when, we can get into like the burning event. I know you did a video that you were very supportive of it, and it's kind of, it's clearly been shot down by a lot of the people with way more SPS than I have. But yeah, it's hard to kind of understand this issue for me with, what really is this problem? Like, I understand people talk about, we have an oversupply of these cards. But what is the problem, and who's causing the problem, and how do we make that problem go away, right? So if we look at it from the point of view where it's a bunch of bot farms who have all these cards and they're constantly releasing them into the market and it's keeping the prices depressed, and other people have a bunch of these cards that maybe they want to sell, and they're upset that they can't sell them at a higher price, and is that going to be an attractive option to those bot farms, right? Or are they going to say, well, now we don't want to burn these cards to then get other soulbound cards, because then we can't sell those either, or are we just burning these to create other cards that we're not going to be able to sell? As someone, as a player who is not a bot farm and who, doesn't have a ton of these cards, but I probably do have a bunch of other, cards that I don't need, then yes, I would. And I don't really consider burning them for, like you said, just the sparse amount of DEC that it would create. But yeah, that to me, that would be interesting. And I would be interested in using that mechanic. But then is that solving the problem, right? Are we going to still say, well, now we've done all this work and we've thought we've created this solution, but the problem is still exists with this other group of people who isn't taking advantage of the mechanic. And that's where this whole thing just becomes so such a thorny issue to me, that it's I wish I could understand it better. And to me, we talked about this in a little bit in the battle royale we did last night, and I just want to be like, can't we just move on from this and say, all right, that's just, those cards are just a wash. Let's forget about them and not make the same mistake twice.
Well, I feel like, there's a couple of potential solutions there. So number one, we've already seen, I don't know if you guys have taken a look at Peak Monsters in the last week, but since we got the announcement that ranked updates are happening as a week from now, the card market has really dried up. I just looked at Deep Lurker. There's 80 cards available on the market, which is insane. You rewind to 6 months ago, that card, the number of BCX that was available on the market was, it was some ungodly number. So in an indirect way, something like adjusting ranked and removing league caps and allowing for, if you've got a Lux Vega, all of a sudden you can play a level 10 Deep Lurker, whether you're at bronze or you're at champ.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is indirectly going to solve this oversupply of cards.
Yes.
Stuff like a revamped UX UI is going to attract new players, which, guess what, is going to solve something like an oversupply of cards. All of that said, I love the idea of having ongoing and multiple ways to burn cards for, the burn for DEC. It feels very clinical to me. It's there's no fun for that side of the formula for me. That might not be true for everybody. I don't scour the markets. I'm not looking where is there a burn opportunity where it makes financial sense. You've got to do some maths involved with, after my purchase fees are calculated in per BCX and that sort of stuff. It's monotonous. It's not interesting to me. But something what you just called out as a potential opportunity for, introducing a new burn mechanic where all of a sudden you're rolling the dice a little bit and taking a chance on something new. Maybe I think the conflict system is really interesting in that you have, if I've got 9 cards guaranteed at the end of the first conflict, I can all of a sudden pay 180 vouchers, 20 vouchers per card, and my gold foil chance is doubled per each card. Maybe that's another additional opportunity to if I'm burning 10 1BCX common cards in exchange for 1 new random common card, maybe I can pay 20 vouchers to up my chances on a gold foil. We were talking yesterday, like Hep just mentioned, about some of this stuff, and Virus had a really cool idea of the way that Virus introduced his point was, why would I ever burn something like an Oceanus, who's going to be great as long as he's in Modern, when I can just burn a whole bunch of Hardy Stonefish? We want to even out the card supply equally. Relative to its rarity, each card should be pulled off the table, according to its rarity. And how do we counter that? Well, Virus came up with the idea of, maybe you burn a full set of the water element, for example. So everything from a stonefish to an Igor Darkspear to an Oceanus, and you dump it into your land. So maybe I've got a river plot, and I can get a boost on my PP for, I don't know, the next, month or whatever, if I burn a full set of the water element from that particular era of cards. So I feel like there's a few different pathways we can take, but a few of these pathways are already being pursued, and we're already seeing that translate to these cards evaporate from the market.
Yeah. I think I'm hearing a couple things. One, there are like a lot of dissenting opinions around how we go forward, and two, we're actually seeing some progress in the underlying concern, which is really card supply. Like, so it's whether we look at card burnings, or whether we look at sort of one-off burn events, or sort of a mechanism where you can burn cards to create other cards. These might be interesting to some people in some scenarios, but they have problems, like Virus seemed to be suggesting. I didn't hear that conversation, but just even that idea, I like that point about, are we trying to delete hardy stonefish, or are we trying to delete, cards? Because the market is the free market. This is the thing that I'm so like, I love the free market, and I don't think most people understand it truly, but like the force of just like the invisible hand that's at work behind that, if you create an incentive, like you can delete cards and create production points or in your land, or you can create new cards, this new incentive, absolutely everyone looks at it and says, hey, can I benefit from this financially if I burn? Like, is this a disproportionate reward for me? Does this new incentive change things in a way where I want to participate in that? Yes or no? And it absolutely then translates to, okay, maybe not globally, like I don't want to burn all my cards or most of my cards or even many of my cards, but on some key cards, you'll find that opportunity is bigger, because it always is. Because that's how a free market works within the context of the card market. And some of them are going to be cheaper and more expensive, and some of them are going to have more production points than others. And all of that ends up mattering in terms of when you burn one legendary versus one gold foil versus non-gold foil, it transforms your returns. And that ends up being, that is like when I talk about the game within the game, that whole analyzing all of that to me is the game within the game of Splinterlands. And I think there's always, essentially, I guess what I'm saying is there's always those forces at work, whether we change how we burn cards or not, whether we have a great burning 2.0 or not. The question really is, in those moments of transition, because there will be some kinds of moments of transition where the game implements new angles of how we do this stuff. Even the change recently of saying that cards will be used at every level. Sorry, any level of card can be used at every level. Depending on where you're at, you can play your best card. That is a massive change that Django's pointed to, like a one felt impact, which is that certain cards like Deep Lurker are getting bought up. I assume getting bought up, like, because the number of supply seems to have shrunk based on what you're saying. And that's probably because that card is really impactful. And now I can, even though I'm in silver or gold, I can play at my highest level Deep Lurker. So I want a highest level Deep Lurker. I want a champion diamond level Deeper Lurker because it's that good. There's unintended consequences that always happen as we change the way the game operates, and the people who recognize this stuff benefit. And some people get salty about that because it's like, hey, I can't benefit, or hey, you really, like it happened with the DC airdrop points for SBS. Some people got really rich, and I think maybe if I'm not wrong, I think the guy from Equalis, I think Crypto Eater is like one of those guys. Is it Crypto Eater with Equalis?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's his story. Like, in a large part, it's like he saw that move, recognized an opportunity, and went like real deep on that. And that is what I love about Splinterlands and this space, because there's always going to be those sort of niches. And if you're the first to see it, huge opportunities. And I'm okay with other people winning too. Like I hope this is true of me. I'm not going to get salty if like somebody else, hits a home run with respect to some of those. So I guess I'm for changing things in it. I'm for some kind of burning, but I do like what you said about how even that one big change has maybe already started us down the right path. Maybe we don't need other changes. I guess I don't know. I do like to kind of, it's like a little bit of stirring the pot when we change things like that. I love those moments because those moments are these unique spaces where you can be that guy who sees what like during the airdrop, SPS airdrop, where you see the DC is giving crazy rewards and you buy $10,000, $100,000 worth of DC because you want to, and then get, millions of dollars worth of SPS because of how it worked. And so I guess I'm for stirring it up, even if, but Hep, you mentioned something about bots and how they might benefit. And that's something I haven't really thought about, to be honest. That makes me pause a little bit.
Yeah, and it's not that, oh, are they going to be benefiting over everybody else? It's, are they really the cause of the problem? And, how are they going to, are they going to want to take advantage of something like that? It's, yeah, to me, it's, you like, yeah, I just don't know. Like, where is this oversupply of these cards? And again, if it's just these rewards cards, and I don't know, like Jangles was saying, a lot of the regular Chaos Legion cards, you're starting to see some liquidity. Those dry up now. I guess, man, maybe I should go max out my Deep Lurker. I guess
you got that Lux Vega, man. You definitely should.
I do have that Lux Vega. Yeah, I might as well start to figure out what cards I need to put to use. But yeah, and it's like, I know there's still a ton of Chaos Legion packs even on the markets and stuff.
Yep.
And I've thought about, Jangles keeps saying that he wants me to just get a couple hundred Chaos Legion packs and see what I can get out of those to max out my Chaos Legion deck. And I've been thinking about it the last couple of days. Thinking about
I feel like that's fish in a barrel, dude. 85 cents or something like that.
I think they're up to like 92, 93 cents now.
Yeah, on the non-card market, 93, but Hive Engine could be different too.
No, Hive Engine's equalized now, because I remember I was looking at it last week and there was a big spread between Hive Engine, but the spread is about the same now. And I don't know if that's just because Hive has actually gone up a little bit too. So the cost per Hive might still be about the same, but I think Hive's kind of pumped up a little bit the last few days.
Worst case, Hep, those Chaos Legion cards, that's the biggest bang for your buck on filling out the rest of your plots, right? I mean, Rebellion cards aren't going to find a home on lands, that's for sure. At least a profitable home. Yeah. Well, it's interesting stuff, man. I do think let's shift gears and talk specifically about the burning events. We have seen some, like Hep said, some really deep pockets put their heels in the sand on a hard no. This isn't going to benefit the community in the way that we're expecting or we were hoping for. I've seen some really powerful and cool suggestions in terms of what could happen or what should happen as a product of the burn, or if we should just nix the burn, let things play out and go straight to the next promo card that Matt was referencing around the halving. We saw a really meta card come in at the last halving with the Alchemist. I mean, that card was going for, it was an epic card, I think, if I recall correctly, and it was like $20 per BCX up until the waning moments of Untamed being in Modern. So yeah, what's your? I know you published your own thoughts and video kind of covering the burn. Have you had a chance to kind of rethink that? I know you're a thoughtful dude and you're always willing to go back to the drawing board. Are you still kind of for what was presented, or have you started to feel the tables turn a little bit in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that, I guess I feel like a little bit of reiteration, just of like a different point, but it's connected here. I like when we shift gears, there's so much turmoil that happens as we stir that pot. And I love the moments where I can have those opportunities to see it before others. And there's always unintended consequence. So I'm for it in the sense of it'd be an exciting new thing. But at the same time, I actually just recorded before we went live. I did a frequently asked question video, which will be out tomorrow or tonight, I guess. But in there, I talked a little bit about the idea that if there's no card burning, like if there was no card burning at all, no great burning, and also no way to make the soulbounds, for instance, transferable. This is like a soulbound conversation, but it's also kind of a Chaos Legion conversation, because the real issue is like both of them, there's too many of them. And they're two different conversations, but I guess, with respect to any cards that are just overpopulated, you can either say, let's just leave them be overpopulated. It is what it is. And they'll be out of modern in the relative, like within a year or whatever. And it is what it is. And that's okay. I don't see that being that. If we do that, I see one angle that's worth talking about, which is like, I really, truly, I guess what I'm saying is I'm okay either way. But I just love looking at what the different angles that will come as, or the unintended consequences that will unfold when we choose our action. And so if we have a great burning, I want to look at what cards can I get the most points for burning. I want to, if we can burn a few cards to get one new card, I want to think that through from my own angle. So yeah, I think the question really around any great burning or how we might handle burning in general, dust, no dust, 5 cards turn to 1 card, whatever it may look like. The question really ends up being, if we're not for any of that, I'm okay with that. But I think even choosing not to have any burning is going to have some really interesting implications for our game in the coming year and a half, which gets me thinking, if we're not going to do a great burning, I think Chaos Legion is going to continue to be the real mainstay within Modern because it's so cheap. And then when it cycles out, you're going to see a gap or like a vacancy where you're now relying on Rebellion as your mainstay deck. And yes, there'll be a new set at that moment, but that's always an expensive new set, which probably has voucher cost and is brand new. So it's exciting and people are buying it up. So, and I don't really believe that Rebellion is going to drop off in cost. Like, I don't think I'm pretty convinced Rebellion is going to stay stable, and there may be a little dip toward the end, but I'm saying that might be an expensive play in Modern in a year and a half if we don't choose to sort of create ways where, for instance, soulbounds are maybe made transferable, they're made burnable so you can get other copies. Chaos Legion is made burnable and it creates some sort of resource, which, like, I think burning mechanisms are going to allow people to modify their decks in ways that they see and desire and strengthen their account. And I think if we say no to all of that, it's going to be this interesting moment when Chaos Legion moves out. I don't know if that makes sense. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, that does make sense, right? Because then you have a lot of these players, some of them who maybe invested a lot of money in Chaos Legion cards when they first came out and prices were high, and they were sort of like, well, I'm here, I'm going to get what I can out of this set. Maybe I'll buy some Rebellion cards, maybe not. But yeah, if there's not a way to kind of transition, like you're saying, then some of those people might say, you know what, I'm not putting any more money into this game, and I'm gonna, dump my Chaos Legion cards wherever I can, and I'm out. Or you have people who got Chaos Legion cards at very cheap prices and are kind of sticker shocked by, like, I have to spend how much on putting a deck together, and it's two sort of opposite ends of it, but you end up with the same result where people might not stick around. And I think that's a very, very real issue that we'll have to face. And I think people coming to if we get new players coming in the game now who maybe don't understand all of this, right? That we've all sort of lived through all of this, right? They'll, why are these? There's a bunch of cards that are cheap. There's a bunch of cards that aren't cheap on the market, right? And and then when Chaos Legion moves out, and kind of have to explain to all these new people, like, hey, this is how this works, and here we're releasing this other set. Are they going to say, hey, what's going on? Is this kind of like a bait and switch type situation almost, it'll seem like. So yeah, I think trying to figure out something to ease that transition would be best for everybody.
And so I guess if soulbounds at least maybe there is no great burning, or there's no like, 5 common chaos can be turned into one. Okay, but and maybe we just abandon the chaos issue. But I really think with soulbounds, at least, there should be a Matt has been pretty outspoken about how he wants to make them transferable, which would mean sellable, which would mean you can buy copies you're missing and upgradable. Now, I don't think that's even firmed up or finalized. The game allows essentially, or not always, but even into that next transition when Chaos moves out of Modern, you'll still be able to, I would think, well, no, these are soulbounds that are tied to Chaos, maybe. I don't know how that'll work. But I do think soulbounds, and we probably need to stop these soulbounds and issue the new one and make them Rebellion, and then let that be a transition period. Because I'm saying, like, I'm just looking at a year and a half down the pipe, and we get to a place where there isn't a cheap card, and we want tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of new players to come in, but we're asking, $4 a pack, $5 a pack, times probably 2,000 packs, just to start playing like at a gold league level, maybe. Whereas right now it's probably $1,500, like to get a chaos deck that's like pretty diamond out. And I don't know if that is, I think that may be a real sales pitch problem down that we can anticipate. And I just want to like think through.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's, so Hep, I'm going to pick some words that you just mentioned, specifically bait and switch. I feel like the bait and switch requires context of the past. I think we're projecting into the future based on what we've endured for the last 2 years here. Would a new player have that? I'm just trying to, remove all of my perspective and just focus on objectivity from the perspective of a newcomer. Would that really be present, or is it more like, holy moly, Chaos Legion is a smoking deal? I know that Chaos Legion is only going to be present and viable in Modern for the next, 6 months, but it still comprises a big chunk of what's available to play in Modern. Earnings are fantastic. You know what I'm getting at? Like, I feel like the context is something that's completely removed when there's somebody who's fresh to the ecosystem. And I'm wondering if we're just, overthinking the problem and making it, I think back to when SPS staking requirements came into play. The whole community was up in arms. Holy shit, 400,000 SPS is required for these same earnings that I've been earning at champ level for, from now and forever. How am I ever going to earn the same? Well, I haven't heard that argument come up since. It was the hot topic for maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks, and it's since completely dissipated.
Because a lot of those people who were making that argument left, though.
Interesting.
We have seen players bleed out. That's for sure.
I'm pretty convinced that people are going to be salty no matter what we do. I don't even like the best, to me. And sometimes I think like the best suggestions, there's still salt, or even in the middle of like right now, like I feel like there's just so much reason to be excited about what Splinterlands is and what it's becoming. And yet I see certain comments and it's like, I'm astonished where that tone comes from. Because to me, and I think I have to then try and step out of my situation and be like, okay, well, they bought Chaos Legion at full price and they rode the wave down. And, but I've been there too. This is something that not everybody maybe knows about me, but like, man, I've been there too. Like I bought Bitcoin at like, $3,000 and I rode the wave up to 20,000 the first time around. And then I rode the wave down, and like I turned all of my investments into, a significant bag, and then it turned into almost nothing, man. And that's just crypto. And I think, so I just think some of these people are just new to crypto, and not just even forget about new to Splinterlands, they're new to crypto. And that is a lesson that I think we kind of everybody needs to learn before, and at some point there's going to be salt around that, whether it's a transition moment when a certain deck leaves Splinterlands, or whether it's a transition in terms of how the game plays, because by the way, items and spells are going to be crazy in terms of how they impact the game. And then is there going to be arguments that land, you got to have land to play this thing. And it's so stupid. I don't want to own land, but you need these items and spells. Or how about SPS? And if it does get up to 25 cents or $1 at some point in the future, you need to have, 100 grand worth of SPS to play a video game. Like, so there's lots of different sort of ways you probably could point to where people are going to complain about, we'll all be under those or whatnot.
Yeah, it kind of cures all. And
yeah,
that's the thing too. That is the thing about this game though, where there's just so much going on. And since we have all been been a part of this for, Dwayne, you've been around for a long time, and Jangles and I have been in it for like 2 years now. It's over 2 years. And when I was saying with the bait and switch thing, I was being more like, if someone comes in new and fresh, they might not even understand the concept that Chaos Legion is going to rotate out. Like, how long does it take for you to even get up to that point? Like, you're probably just trying to figure out how to play the game, how to get in a guild, figuring this whole thing out. That takes I'm trying to think back to when I first started playing with, very little, information. There's a lot less information available than there is now, but it took me a couple of months. Like, I remember trying to remember the first time I figured out I had a Hive wallet and I can go on Hive Engine. I was probably playing the game for 5, maybe 6 months at that point, right? So you kind of think you got to look at how people might just see, oh, here's a market, I can buy cards here. They might understand, oh, here's some other packs I can get, or these other cards, but I can get cards in this market thing. It just takes such a while to figure all that out, that if we get a influx of players 6 months from now, they're still going to be in the process of figuring those things out when we're now going to be transitioning Chaos Legion out. So I think that's kind of the issue.
I think that's all fair. And as Splinterlands currently lives in it is a very challenging onboarding experience, to say the least. I think back to my own experience, and like you said, man, it was months before I figured out how to use Hive and what was Peak D and what was Leo Finance, and how do I navigate with peak monsters, all of that stuff. But I feel like that onus is on the team, and I think we've seen glimpses of what that new onboarding experience will look and feel like through the things like the academy, and we've seen the first, I guess, page of the academy through the conflict system, and I feel like all of this stuff needs to be laid out in black and white through that onboarding experience. What does your first week in Splinterlands look like? Well, it should be covering all of these things. What is modern? What is wild? How do you navigate Hive? What is Hive? What is a guild? What is the benefit of having a guild? Point to some YouTube content creators. I feel like there's a huge untapped resource from the game to stuff that already exists for a very long time, and to this day, a lot of the onboarding experience is actually carried and handled by people like you, Dwayne, and by people like Bulldog. The team hasn't owned any of that. There's no, I don't think I touched the tutorial once. Practice mode I've played maybe once or twice, and it's a dog shit experience. So I feel like the team needs to take on that burden and issue in what is the next generation of Praetoria look like. And I feel like, so I have big expectations for what does that UX UI update look like throughout the rest of the year. I've said it a handful of times since we got that update from Nate and Matt, that's priority number one for 2024 is that new player experience. We've talked to guys like Tails, we've seen guys like Bulldog start to branch out into other games. What are those experiences like in those other games, and how do we bring the best of that into Splinterlands? So no pressure, Nate, but let's go, man.
Yeah, what was like, so take Immortal Creed, for example. What was sort of that, and maybe you're just familiar with these types of games now where it was pretty easy for you, but do you think that how was the new player experience using that term?
Almost not much. Like you said, I watched a content creator, shout out to Bronze Dragon, and he did a video that's probably 20 minutes long, and he made it simple enough. Like, but you're right. Like, these games it's not okay to just say, oh, just Google it, or like go search somebody on YouTube and see, because like that's just that has been the basis of like how these games are essentially marketed, essentially communicated, that taught. And I don't think that's the realistic or sustainable model for like a long-term success. I think we got to get to a place where it's compartmentalized in some way. It's overwhelming, man. It took me, I want to say, I still remember like probably a year in, I don't know, maybe it wasn't that long of Splinterlands play, where there was like just basic things. Like I was, it might have been weeks before I realized you had to burn BCX in order to upgrade your monster. Like there's just real, and then summoners levels and how they cap the monster levels in Splinterlands. All of that takes so much stumbling, and that you need to read like sort of a encyclopedia or watch 100 hours of YouTube clips you just to fall in love with a game is not okay. Like somehow it's got to be incorporated to the new player experience, or the quote player experience. And I do think they will do their best, but I've thought about it, and I don't know if you guys have. I've thought about, could I sort of volunteer to create content for them that would really proceduralize that? And the truth is, I don't even know where to begin. This game is, people say Splinterlands is simple. It's not. It's so complicated. And even more so when you can probably, well, I don't know about more so, but it's very complicated. It's not at all easy. It's not just an auto brawler, slap 5 cards in the deck and see what happens. It's like, if you're going to win, especially a disproportionate number of your battles, you have to be so thoughtful about the construction of your team and the implementation or the utilization of your team within the context of the rule sets and the mana cap. And that is very difficult to navigate reliably, consistently. And so to teach that is actually like it's like a masterclass. It's like hours. I've been playing for 5 years, and there are people, and I don't think I'm excellent at the game. I think I've got an interesting, mind for it, is what I would say. So I do think we need somehow to provide that for people in a simple way. And I do think it's probably going to come from community members. I don't think that's optimal. I want the team to do it, because I think they'll do it hopefully in a real streamlined way. But then again, as you look at their UI on Splinterlands, I love the game. I love the developers. This is not a slag, but the marketplace has never been the place of, the Splinterlands marketplace is not as good as other marketplaces, period. And I could deep dive into, different reasons why, but I just suffice it, it's just not. And so if they need to outsource even things like the marketplace, they're always going to have to outsource, and maybe the DAO needs to commission videos, but would you need to update those every 6 months? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to do this easily. Maybe this is always a barrier our game will deal with. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. And because I remember when I learned to play, you had less rules, less rule sets. Was it probably two? Was there two rules in rule sets in back then, or was there only one? I mean, there's a lot more like just common.
Poison earthquake's always been a thing. So 2, as long as I've been around.
So it's tough to. How do you walk through that unless it's just hours of play? You know what I mean? Hours of playing and saying, okay, well, this is what Mike would think about. It is. Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I think about that first week of user experience is critical to the lifetime value of a particular client or customer. And it's in the company's best interest to shore that up as much as possible, make an immersive experience where you're not just touching. I think Weirdbeard had a lot of really great ideas with the battle pass, for example, like enter a tournament, rent a card, delegate a card, how to join a guild, like all of that tangent stuff that is really core to the Splinterlands player experience, and introduce that stuff through, you can trickle it in with within that first week of gameplay and tutorial. But yeah,
there's no doubt that would be helpful. I was thinking about it the other day, and I think it would easily get um antiquated. Is that the yeah? Because like if you picture even the battles, and they're gonna show. Are they going to show what cards are going to show in their demonstration battles? Is it going to be Rebellion? At some point in the future, Rebellion are going to be wild cards that no one has access to. It's going to be the rare thing that nobody plays with. And it's so like, do we need to reinvent the wheel every time is it once a year we got to commission these new videos, or is it once every 2 years? And does that, maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe I'm thinking it wrong, but this feels like a massive undertaking. And but it is one of the biggest hurdles for player adoption. When you come in and say this game is like, really, if you were going to just break it down, you could say it's an auto brawler NFT collectible card game. But man, it's so much more complicated than that. And the people I hear being most critical about Splinterlands are the ones who think that's all it is. And so somehow overcoming that ignorance and letting them see what it fully is, and somehow distilling that education process, man, it's like, I don't know how to do it, but I think the first person, honestly, if somebody can imagine a way to do it for Splinterlands, and you do like exceptional content, I think there's money in it. Like, I think people will watch it from a YouTube perspective, because there are going to be, especially in the coming months, we're going to be new thousands and tens of thousands of people who come, I think. And if so, they're going to be excited to watch your stuff. So I would say, like, if this innovation exists, and if like the people out there that can do it, get on it, prepare yourself, like get the stuff ready, because I believe that the masses are coming. I just think it's like, I think it's a matter of SPS getting to a different number and not drawing certain eyeballs. I think it's about Land 2.0 coming out. I think it's about the next set being exciting, and the combination of factors I just quickly gloss over. So I think if someone can imagine this, it would be, I think, a powerful earning opportunity for them individually.
Do you think, you mentioned maybe this is something the DAO needs to do? Do you think that this is kind of in the DAO's purview, or should this responsibility be on the team? And as a general matter, what's the separation? How do we break down what the team should be responsible for, what the DAO should be responsible for? Because it seems like we're now going back and forth with, the team saying it wants, money from the DAO for this, and then, the DAO saying it wants the team to do certain things, and teams like, this is not, we don't want to do this. It's, the lines keep kind of getting blurred, in my opinion. I thought we were maybe getting some better separation, but it seems like now we're starting to get them blurred again. So, kind of what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of lack of clarity around that. I think the community, you see it in town hall. It's like, there'll be a comment or a question. It's like, can't the DAO just do that, or can't the team just do that? And it's like, no, that's like a DAO issue, or no, it's definitely a company issue. And I guess I would just say that it would be optimal if the team tackled these things. But I do point to the Splinterlands website and say that marketplace has never been the go-to marketplace for anybody who is trying to buy, sell, trade monsters. It is like cumbersome. It's, and they've revamped it recently. And I feel as though I'm super, I need to say again, like I really do have a ton of respect for that team. And I appreciate all the hard work that they're pouring out into it. But I'm just saying, third-party solutions are better. Peak Monsters is better. Aqualis is great in the sense that they give you money back, but their site is not great. I think Peak Monsters is the definitive marketplace for Splinterlands related card trading. And that tells me something about how, where we should look when we try to imagine how could we create the best content that really satisfyingly, attractively educates and invites new people in. It's probably not going to come from the team, even though maybe it would be optimal if it did come from the team. It is their game in a sense, but it's also, this is a weird thing, because it's like Splinterlands is different. It's like, it's Steam Monster, the company's game, but it's also our game in a literal sense, in that we earn SPS, which is a valuation which allows us to control the DAO, which has millions of dollars in it, which, incentivizes and maybe one day will pay Steam Monster as a company. So it's a very gray or foggy sort of distinction. And I sometimes I would maybe shy away from the conversation of where should it be done, because to me, it's more like, where can it be done or how can it be done? And I think
Yeah.
it has to be from like probably the, the thoughtful, creative genius that exists in, whether it's YouTube or Twitch. And it's not going to be me because I've thought about it and thought about it. I can't imagine a way to really cleanly do it. I did see, you mentioned Weirdbeard a moment ago. I remember when he was still kicking around, I think he did like a very brief video, or if he just showed it to me and it's an example for the team to kind of imagine what it could be. So I guess it's possible they do it well. I don't think that is possible within this context at this moment because we're still like worried about runway and financing. And I think this requires a certain team with a certain, sense for that creative style that I'm not convinced exists right now, or maybe the bandwidth doesn't exist right now. So long answer short, I think it has to come from third party problem solvers, and I think that'll be where the best product comes from.
I know I believe it was Matt. We talked about this with, was it Matt? Sort of this way one of the ways the new player experience could work is to limit, put people in an environment that limits their cards at first just to, melee attacks. So you learn, all right, here's what sneak does, here's what reach does. Here's, you could maybe even throw opportunity in there or work your way into opportunity, right? So then it's kind of laid out where you're like, okay, like I'm learning this, okay? And now it's like, okay, now let's go to, ranged attack monsters only. Like here's what, whatever the frontline range attack can be. And so and then you move to magic and you just kind of compartmentalize these things, right? So you learn them separately. So you're not necessarily worried about all the interactions of them all together. And you can just kind of take compartmentalize and you're like, okay, now I know range, now I know melee, now I know magic. And then you could start to kind of work in some of the other abilities there. So, but yeah, I think that's just the reason why I think, you think about it and like, how do you do this from a content creator perspective is because it would take dumbing the game down to a certain point where you could then teach it step by step. Whereas we don't have the ability to do that, right? Like if we had a challenge mode where we could pick our rule sets, right? We could maybe start to get close to it, right? You could pick, close encounter rule sets and go through 5 or 6 matches with like, hey, let's learn what melee attacks do. And then you could pick, wands out and say, all right, let's learn about magic. And then you could pick going the distance, which I haven't brought this up and think about this. Is that the worst name for a rule set? I don't want to get off on this tangent. I do want to get off on this tangent. This is probably not the time or the place for it. But
I was just going to say, I'm impressed that you know all the names of these rule sets. I just think melee only, magic only, ranged only, and you rattle off the specifics.
I thought about this. I wish I'd brought this up with, either Breaking Benjamin or Call Me Tim. With like, we need to change the name of that going the distance because it's stupid. It needs to be like bullseyes or be something that's more related to archery than going the distance. Makes me sound like we're in a foot race. Yeah.
I'm glad you bring this up because why is it range? Range means like distance fire, and magic is distance in like every game I've ever played. So like when I hear the word range, I think like shoots from the second, third, fourth spot. But I've heard lots of people say this, like why to me, I would have always called it archery. I have always called it archery, magic, melee. And why is it range? Help me understand that.
So, I mean, I don't think they do a great job implementing this in the game, but my understanding too is that in other fantasy games and other things I played, they refer to things as ranged because it's not just archery, right? Like you could have throwing knives, you could have throwing axes. There's other types of like pointed physical weapons that can deal range damage.
Okay.
And so that's kind of my understanding of why it's called range, because it's not specific to just archery or bow and arrow. Because you have a crossbow, you could have, a slingshot. There's other categories of range damage that don't. Range is a broader category.
Ancient redwood.
Spear, javelin, spear throwing. So that's kind of I'm trying to even think if like like Total War or Ages of Empire we use this kind of like range damage as like the name for the different units too that have, you know, throw things like javelins and spears and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's kind of my understanding. But
Cool.
yeah, but going the
That-
distance, terrible name. What
Definitely.
were we even talking about to begin with? Oh yeah, so but if we had an ability to choose the rule sets and challenge match, that would make it easier for we don't have that ability, and I know that, but I don't know if we would ever get that. There might be some issues with being able to create that. But yeah, if you had something like that where you could specifically say, I want to limit it to just these sets of cards, but still maybe have randomized some of the other rule sets, or you know, which splinters are available, that would help.
Yeah, I agree. Although I think at least my brain, as I try to imagine that content, I think, what is there, 50, 80 different abilities? The synergy, like you could explain reach, but then you need to explain reach within the context of melee from any position, and then you need to explain reach. You know, you want to explain thorns, but you want to, and then you need to separately explain amplify damage, and maybe in the context of melee for any. I feel like it's like, to me it sounds like 10,000 videos, not 10 videos. And I go, I don't know how you dial this complexity, because I, and this is beating a dead horse a little, but I just really believe this game is so much more complicated than most people give it credit for. As I've looked at some salty videos recently. There's some salty videos on YouTube that kind of getting roasted from a comment perspective, just being like the Splinterlands community just coming out and be like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm thinking of one in particular. I'm not going to say his name. But what's my point? The superficial understanding that is present in the critics' minds points me to the reality that most people don't have an appetite to stick around and hear the fullness of the lesson that they need to hear in order to get what this is offering and what this is. And maybe that's both a problem and the secret sauce. Like, maybe we are just that sort of like Fight Club-esque. You know how in Fight Club it's like you stand outside for 3 days, like, and then you're still here. It means you really like it, and we'll help you out. Like,
Yeah.
maybe that's what it is. And maybe I'm not saying that's good, but at least my mind can't imagine a simplified way of delivering the necessary information that I see as necessary in a way that really is meaningful. Because you don't want to just make it and then it's like, one of you guys in this video said something about, I think you were talking about like some other tutorials, and it's like skip. So they're so terrible. Oh, Jangles, you were talking about the practice or whatever. You're like, you know, whatever, it just like skip. It's just garbage. It's like, this isn't helpful. It's in the way. It's annoying. It's not. And so if we're going to put money and time into it, it's got to somehow be powerful, but I don't see the path to it. And hopefully somebody out there smarter than me that can.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the roadblock you're always going to hit, though, right? Is like, you can teach everybody what the abilities do, but you can't necessarily teach someone to think through the combinations and the synergies, right? And that's the competitive aspect of the game.
Yeah,
I feel like,
maybe
right?
right.
That's what makes the game attractive too, right? And that's what one of the big things that attracted me to the game, is because there's all these different combinations. There's all these different ways. You know, it's a puzzle you could put together in different ways,
Yes.
and get different results, right? So you can teach people what the pieces do, but it's always going to be that person's, you know, it's going to have to figure out how they're going to put that puzzle together. And I don't think you need to teach, and you really can't teach everyone the one right way to put, you know, because like you said, like, then you're like, well, you could do this, but then this is the counter to that, right? Like, but that's something
Yeah.
you got to learn by playing. And I think it's more of just kind of breaking down, you know, the cards, how they interact, and like what the rule sets are, and those sort of things, where you know, for someone who's maybe not as familiar with games, as you know, I coming in, I played, you know, a lot of games. I played a lot of board games, a lot of stuff where I'm like, okay, I can look at these like, okay, I kind of know what that means. I kind of know what that'll do. Or you just see it once and you say, okay, you know, that's what Thorns does, right? That's what Amplify does. Okay. Yeah. So I just think we can only take people so far, but it's almost like we're not even trying to get anybody halfway there yet.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big undertaking, and maybe this is exactly what the conversation looked like with Nate and the design team when they were planning out what's coming in 2024. Well, we've got 10,000 videos and 10,000 hours of content to put together. I don't know if we have time to squeeze it in anything else, so that's what we're getting this year is tutorial stuff, experience stuff. Yeah, and to your point, and I quickly want to call out, I think about, learning all of the melee specific stuff, and then all of that goes out the window when it's like reach. I play a tide biter in a second position in a super sneak match. Which abilities supersedes the other? And I to this day I still screw it up. So it is incredibly challenging and nuanced, and there's it's a huge undertaking. But
I feel like it changes. I feel like sometimes you do it, you're like, oh, it's gonna do a sneak attack, and sometimes like, no, it's doing like it's not.
I always thought that
too.
A reach monster in the second position is going to reach regardless of super sneak rule set. But
I think it should, but it doesn't. It sneaks.
Yeah, I think the rule set supersedes everything else. I think.
I think so too. Virus is the one. The big brains out there, they know that stuff.
Yeah, that's why I lose. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Well, Dwayne, man, I know we were shooting for an hour and a half. We've gone a little bit over. I appreciate all that you do for the community, man, and always welcome back. It's been way too long. I can't believe we connected. I guess probably 5-6 weeks ago, trying to coordinate this episode, and we'll have to do it sooner than later and get you back on. I feel like there's plenty of stuff that we didn't even get close to touching on with today's episode, but enjoyed it thoroughly nonetheless. And again, man, appreciate all you do for Splinterlands and Hive.
Absolutely, man. Love it. You guys too. Love the content. Keep it up. And Hep, let's access and analyze it up, buddy.
All right, I'm definitely gonna do that. I'll get a game. Jangles, do you want to get in on this?
Yes, please.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right. We'll get something going. We'll find one other person. We'll get a solid foursome going. It'll be good.
Love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for being on here. Everybody definitely go, check out the channel on YouTube. You just search by Infidel1258, right? It comes up. I think you can search by, Dwayne Cunningham as well.
I think Dwayne's at a point where you just Google Splinterlands and you've got
he's there. Yeah.
He'll show up. But
he doesn't need our little podcast plug in him. He's got it going right.
This podcast is going to be the one. I think like next bull run. I'm looking for you guys keep up at it. Like I think this is one of the ones that I think is going to be the biggest grower in my mind, because I watch it and I'm like, I'll just throw it on in the background, and super professional. Love it. Love to come back. We'll talk more.
Awesome. Appreciate you, man. All right, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the episode. You have been listening to
The People's Guild.